Video opens with a shot of a young girl, Elena, standing at the entrance of a new well-kept school. She looks nervous but determined. Her clothes are simple and worn, but immaculately clean, a stark contrast to the crisp uniforms of the other students. They saw her simple clothes. They didn't see the hours her mother spent washing them by hand, making sure they were spotless for her first day. They saw her second-hand backpack, faded and patched. They didn't see the weight of the dreams it carried, dreams carefully nurtured in a home with very little else. When Elena walked through the gates of a new school, she wasn't just a new student. She was an island, surrounded by a sea of pressed uniforms and whispered judgments. The other students didn't use cruel words. Not at first. They used something far more effective: silence. A space would clear around her in the crowded hallways. A seat would remain empty beside her in the bustling cafeteria. They looked at her plain shoes and decided they knew the sum of her worth. They concluded she was less than them, not because of her character, but because of the clothes she wore. Their world was one of brand names and the latest gadgets. Her world was one of making things last. They couldn't see the bridge between these two worlds, so they simply pretended hers didn't exist. The distance grew wider in the classroom. When the teacher announced a group project, a low hum of excitement filled the air as students quickly formed their circles of friends. Elena stood by her desk, a hopeful look on her face, waiting for an invitation that would never come. One by one, the groups were formed, laughter and plans echoing around her. She was the last one standing, the unspoken remainder in their social equation. "I'll work alone," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper, not wanting to cause a problem. The teacher, busy managing the chaos, simply nodded. The other students exchanged glances, a mixture of pity and relief. To them, her solitude was confirmation of her status. They saw a girl without partners. They didn't see the resolve hardening in her eyes, a quiet promise to herself that she would not fail. They didn't see the extra hours she would spend, the long walks to the one place that welcomed everyone, regardless of their uniform. Days turned into a week of quiet, focused effort. While her classmates gathered in comfortable homes, their laptops open, browsers filled with endless information, Elena's research began with a journey. Her evenings were spent under the warm fluorescent lights of the public library. She had no computer, no high-speed internet at home. Her tools were the worn spines of encyclopedias, the rustle of turning pages, and the patient guidance of the librarian who had come to know her by name. She pieced together her project, not with copy and paste, but with handwritten notes, cross-referencing facts from dusty textbooks and forgotten journals. She found connections others had missed, her perspective shaped not by algorithms, but by the quiet contemplation that the library offered. The day of the presentation arrived. The other groups went first, their presentations slick and modern, filled with colorful slides and embedded videos. They were polished, but familiar. Then, it was Elena's turn. She walked to the front of the class with no laptop, only a small stack of note cards. A few students snickered. They saw her empty hands and expected a failure. They didn't see the wealth of knowledge she held in her mind. She began to speak. Her voice, once so quiet, was now clear and steady. She didn't just recite facts. She wove a narrative. She spoke of historical patterns and human motivations with a depth that was startling. She drew connections that were both brilliant and profoundly simple. Insights gleaned from books that her peers had never thought to open. A hush fell over the room. The snickers died, replaced by wide-eyed attention. She wasn't just presenting a project. She was revealing a mind that had been sharpened, not by privilege, but by necessity. Her classmates saw a girl who had no computer. They were only just beginning to see the powerful intellect she had built in its absence. A few days later, a pivotal moment unfolded. Not in a grand assembly, but in the quiet intimacy of their history classroom. The lesson was on the sacrifices made for progress throughout civilization. The teacher, hoping to make the concept more tangible, posed a question to the class. "What is the true cost of an education?" she asked, looking around the room. "Is it money, or is it something else? What would you sacrifice for the chance to learn?" The students shifted uncomfortably. For them, the cost was tuition fees their parents paid, the price of a new textbook, the annoyance of waking up for an early class. One student mentioned sacrificing video game time to study. Another complained about the price of tutoring. Their sacrifices were inconveniences. Then, the teacher's gaze fell on Elena, who had been silent, her hands folded on her desk. "Elena," the teacher prompted gently, Do you have anything to share? Elena hesitated for a moment, then she spoke. Her voice was soft, devoid of any self-pity or drama. It was the sound of simple, quiet truth. My mother doesn't have money for the bus, she began. So she walks with me to school every morning and walks home. Then she walks back in the afternoon to take me home. It's an hour each way. She paused, letting the weight of those 4 hours sink in. We don't always have electricity at home. It's not reliable. So I do my homework by candlelight most nights. My sacrifice. I suppose it's my mother's tired feet and my eyes straining in the dark. But we do it because she says learning is the one light they can never turn off. The room was utterly silent. Not the awkward silence of before, but a heavy, profound stillness. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. In that one quiet, truthful moment, Elena had held up a mirror to the entire class. In the stark light of Elena's reality, her classmates saw their own lives for the first time. The complaints about waking up early, the groans about a difficult homework assignment, the desire for the newest phonet all seemed so small, so shamefully trivial. They had seen their uniforms and their gadgets as markers of their identity. Now, they saw them for what they were, privileges. They were tools, not achievements. The real work of education, the real cost, had been invisible to them until now. They had been attending school, but Elena was pursuing an education. They had been given opportunity, but she was seizing it with both hands. The classroom was no longer just a room for lessons in history or math. It had become a space for a lesson in humanity. Her quiet words were more powerful than any lecture. Her lived experience a more profound textbook than any they had ever been assigned. The next day, something shifted. As Elena walked into the cafeteria, holding her simple lunch, she prepared for the usual solitude, but this time, a voice called her name. A girl from her history class, one of the most popular students, waved her over to a table filled with other students. "Hey, Elena, do you want to sit with us?" It wasn't an act of pity. It was an invitation, an opening. For the first time, they weren't seeing her old clothes. They were seeing her. The conversation was stilted at first, but soon they were asking her about the book she had read, the ideas she had shared in her presentation. And then, a new idea sparked. They didn't offer her charity. They didn't offer to buy her a new backpack. Instead, they decided to start a donation drive. Not for Elena, but for the place she loved. They started a collection of used books for the public library, the quiet sanctuary that had been her university. Elena's financial situation didn't change. Her mother still walked for hours a day, and she still studied by candlelight. She did not get richer in material things, but the school, the very soul of the school, became richer. It became richer in empathy, richer in understanding, richer in gratitude. The students learned to see beyond the surface, to measure a person's worth, not by their possessions, but by their character and their hunger for knowledge. What is the true purpose of a school? Is it to create successful students, or is it to cultivate compassionate human beings? Elena, without ever intending to, had taught them that the answer was both, and that one was impossible without the other. They saw a girl in simple clothes. They didn't see that she was the one who would truly educate them all.